Joe Biden's debate disaster is simply not going away, and it's not just because Donald Trump is now practically guaranteed to win the 2024 American presidential elections. In fact, there's a much deeper reason for this, and that is the problem that debate performance exposed the fact that Joe Biden is little more than a puppet of the establishment elites. Indeed, people have been pulling the strings of this administration since quite literally day one, and now that is plain and clear for all of us to see. I'm Stuart Hooper, a lecturer in geopolitics and elite theory, which is what we are going to be discussing here today. Be sure to follow me on whatever platform you're watching this video, whether that be Twitter, X, TikTok, YouTube. Hit like, and please share this everywhere you possibly can. So in the realm of elite theory, there's a very important academic called C. Wright Mills, and he wrote The Power Elite, where Mills basically broke down the fact that there are three tiers to politics: a high level, a medium level, and a low level. At the low level, that's you and I. At the medium level, that's the elected political leaders that most people think run the show. And at the high level, well, that's where we find the people that actually run the show. What does that mean for us today? The transnational corporations, the military-industrial complex, and globalist elites that call institutions like the Trilateral Commission and the Bilderberg Group their home. These are the people that are really in charge. It's not the elected government. Now, when you have a performance like you got from Joe Biden in this debate just a few days ago, people are now starting to ask really tough questions of this political structure. They are starting to look at that mid-level of elected politicians and say, wait a sec, Joe Biden, he's not in charge of anything. Joe Biden, he clearly doesn't really know where he is or what he's doing. So how the hell can he be in charge of the military? How can he have access to the nuclear red button? Well, of course, the answers to all of those questions, which is unfortunate and sad, but it is a reality, is that he's not in charge of any of that. This has all been taken far above that middle level of politics. Again, we're all the way down here, the people who are really in charge, all the way up here. And there are some really important quotes in The Power Elite that allude to this from Mills. He says, quote, "For the mass public, there is the status distinction of celebrity and economic distractions. For the liberal intellectuals who does look to the political arena, there is the political distraction of the sovereign localities and of the middle levels of power, which sustain the illusion that America is a self-balancing society." Indeed, in the middle levels of power, that is where the people who are really pulling the strings want you looking. They want you to think that your vote really matters, that the people you vote for care about you, that the people that you vote for are going to do everything they possibly can to improve your life. This, unfortunately, is not the case. This is not reality. We do not really live in democracies. We live in countries that call themselves democracies, so they can essentially exploit us and do whatever the hell they want, and then just say, well, you voted for us, so you can't complain. This has to come to an end. The puppet masters, the people that are really in charge, the establishment, elites, the individuals from these globalist institutions, the people in the military-industrial complex, these are the people that are really in charge, and they are being exposed day after day as a result of this debate disaster really carrying on for as long as it has. Because what this has done for Biden, again, if we return to Mills, if you want to get into the position of being the president of the United States, of being a political elite, you have to generate prestige for yourself. How do you do that? Well, by making big, important decisions. The more decisions you make, the more prestige you get. The more prestige you get, the more people want you to keep making more decisions because they see you as big and powerful and important and in command. Joe Biden has just shattered that reality, hasn't he? What we now see is that, again, he's clearly not in charge of anything, So people are beginning to ask, who the hell actually is? Now, continuing. Another really important quote here, which I think is very relevant for what we're seeing play out before our very eyes from the power elite, from Mills. He says, quote, only when mind has an autonomous basis, independent of power, but powerfully related to it, can mind exert its force in the shaping of human affairs. This is democratically possible only when there exists a free and knowledgeable public, to which men of knowledge may address themselves, and to which men of power are truly responsible. In other words, unless we are knowledgeable about what's actually happening in the world, actually knowledgeable about the people in charge and the extent to which that's not really a reality, we can't really question these elite power structures until, once again, you get an event like we just saw with this debate. Evidently, Joe Biden is not in charge. So who is? We are finally starting to ask the questions that actually matter. Maybe we can actually start to identify some of the people that are actually in charge and try some way, somehow, to hold them to account. Because the current system of democracy that we have in the Western world, and this holds true for the United Kingdom, where I'm from, as much as the United States, they're quite literally laughing in our face. We swing like a pendulum from one party to another, back and forth around every 10 years, about every decade, we swing back and forth to a different party. And what really changes? Nothing. The world's still on fire. Our countries are still falling apart. You still can't drive down a road without your car falling apart. You still can't send your kids to school where they're going to be properly educated. You've still got no money in your bank accounts. Think. This is far deeper than the elected political system, and that debate has finally started to expose that. So if there was one positive from that, perhaps it is that. Now let's take a look at this article here from Reuters, which I think is a really interesting one. Top Democrats rule out replacing Biden amid calls for him to quit the 2024 race. I mean, that may be a hasty call, to say the least. Top Democrats on Sunday ruled out the possibility of replacing President Joe Biden as a Democratic nominee after a feeble debate performance, and called on party members to focus instead on the consequences of a second Donald Trump presidency. Again, they're trying to draw your attention away from what has just been exposed. Biden doesn't control anything. The establishment elites need to remain in charge. They need to continue driving us towards World War III. They need to continue wiping Palestine off the map. They need to continue helping really wipe Ukraine off the map by allowing this war to continue. They need to continue sending us closer to a confrontation with China. This is their overall agenda. Again, all exposed thanks to the debate performance of Joe Biden. After days of hand-wringing about Biden's poor night on stage debating Trump, Democratic leaders firmly rejected calls for their party to choose a younger presidential candidate for the November 5th election. Biden, 81, meanwhile, was huddling with family members at Camp David presidential retreat on Sunday. The New York Times cited people close to the situation as saying that Biden's family were urging him to stay in the race and keep fighting. I mean, usually say with friends like that, who needs enemies? With family like that, who needs enemies? I mean, this is, I think, somewhat abusive, what is being done to Joe Biden, the man, the human being. Is he a puppet for the establishment? Absolutely. But this is a human being. This is someone that has children, grandchildren. This is not someone who needs to be put through this any longer. The paper said some members of his clan privately expressed exasperation at how his staff prepared him for Thursday night's event. Oh yes, it was the staff's fault. Those presidential staffers, those interns, they're the problem. They just didn't prepare him. that is yeah, we'll just move on. A drumbeat of calls for Biden to step aside has continued since Thursday, and a post-debate CBS poll showed a 10-point jump in the number of Democrats who believe Biden should not be running for president to 46% from 36% in February. Quote, "The unfortunate truth is that Biden should withdraw from the race. For the good of the nation, he has served so admirably for half a century," the Atlanta Journal-Constitution said in an editorial on Sunday. Democratic leaders rejected this. Absolutely not, responded Georgia Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock, one of several Democrats seen as a possible replacement for Biden. This is a situation that is exposing everything that is wrong with the American political structure. 46% of Democrats now think that Joe Biden shouldn't be the nominee. This is approaching a tipping point. And unfortunately, we've just had a Supreme Court ruling today on presidential power that perhaps offers the wildest out of jail free card that you could ever possibly imagine. And I think the ramifications of that ruling may be felt sooner rather than later. That's what we're going to discuss in the next video tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you're new. Hit like on this, share it everywhere you possibly can, and I'll be back with more analysis real soon.